Hi, everyone. Nikolai here from the Financial Commission. I hope everyone had a great holiday season and is back in 2021 to kick things off. I'm here with you today after a brief break at the end of last year to discuss our 2020 annual summary, which highlights our key operating metrics for last year, as well as our complaint statistics for all of 2020. If you'd like to follow along or you'd like to access the full report, there'll be a link below the YouTube video here in the description that you can access, as well as a separate PDF file with all of our complaint statistics from last year. So with that, I'd like to get right into it. We had a very exciting and challenging 2020, obviously because of disruptions and difficulties due to the COVID-19 pandemic around the world. But nonetheless, we were able to actually set a few new records in some of our operating metrics in 2020. And we are happy to share those details with you. So to kick it off, obviously our biggest or most important metric is how many complaints did we accept and resolve last year in 2020. And I'm happy to say that the total amount of complaints that were filed with the Financial Commission was 1,340 in 2020. And if we compare that to 2019, that's actually a very healthy increase of about 32% year over year. With respect to setting records, we were also able to set a new record for the total amount of funds or monies that traders requested from us in their complaints in all of last year. That amount totaled $10.9 million in 2020, which is actually an increase of 48% year over year from 2019 to 2020. At the same time, when we speak about, of all of that money that was sought by traders from us in 2020, how much of it did we actually award to traders in complaints that were resolved in favor of traders? And I'm pleased to say that that number also reached a historic record last year and totaled $1,495,474 that we awarded to traders in 2020. Now, if we compare that number to 2019, that's actually an increase of 148% year over year, which is quite a big jump and quite a big leap. In terms of our other key operating metrics that we look at on a monthly basis and also semi-annual and annual basis are things like average complaint value. So of all the total complaints that we received in 2020, and the amount that was sought in those complaints, what's basically the average of a complaint that we got in 2020? That number or that average for 2020 was 8,812, which is about a 20% growth year over year from 2019. So we do see a healthy uptick in this metric as well. Now, out of the money that was sought from traders that I had just mentioned, we split that into two categories. One category is money that's sought from traders that are using services from our approved broker members, and also money that was sought from traders that are using brokerages who are not currently members of the Financial Commission. And if we extrapolate the funds that were requested specifically from our member broker traders, that amount was actually 8.1 million out of the 10.9 total last year in 2020. And that amount actually grew also significantly by 248% year over year. So in our minds, the money that customers are requesting at least on an annual basis has jumped significantly, specifically for those traders that are trading with our broker members. And obviously, considering the service that we provide, we are always happy to accept and investigate and resolve complaints received from our valued broker members, and to help those traders that are trading with those companies out to resolve their issues. Now, interestingly enough, there's obviously different ways that we could rule on a complaint. We could either rule in favor of a broker, we could either rule in favor of a trader or client, or a complaint might fall out of our jurisdiction or not be resolved because there might not be an actual formal complaint to be had or to be reviewed. And I'm happy to say that if we look at the amount of complaints that were ruled in favor of clients or traders themselves, that number actually increased 31% year over year. So in 2020, Financial Commission ruled about a third more complaints in favor of clients than it did in 2019. Now, obviously, you can open up our PDF sheet and look at our full report and sort of see a better breakdown of how many complaints were actually ruled in favor of brokers at the same time, and how many of them fall outside of our jurisdiction or were not, didn't have a resolution for the reasons that I previously described. Now, our most important metric that we look at is average dispute resolution time. So on average, for all the disputes that we receive in a particular month, half year, or any other period, how quickly are we able to take that complaint from the day that it's received and filed with us to the time when an actual resolution or decision is actually made or response is made, official response is made to a complaint where we consider the complaint closed. Now, that number has fluctuated over the years. You may recall that years prior, our average resolution times were somewhere near 12 days, 10 days. And gradually over the course of a few years, we've been able to actually improve this statistic. And if last year the average resolution time was somewhere around 6.7 days, this year, or in 2020 and last year, that metric was 6.97 days. Now, obviously 0.97 is, can be rounded up, and we could essentially say that it takes about 7 days on average for us to resolve a dispute, which again, we believe is very quick and efficient as compared to any other independent or government associated regulatory bodies around the world that also accept client complaints from Forex and CFD brokers. We know quite well that in those jurisdictions and through those organizations, the dispute resolution process may take significantly more time, perhaps a few weeks or even months. And obviously, as compared to our free service for traders, we think that our service is quite valuable and is quite efficient for traders. Now, given that our report was for the full year, and we had quite a bit of statistics, we looked at things like complaint topics. This is probably something that we don't necessarily speak about when we do our monthly digests every month. But considering that we have a large number of data, we decided to look at these metrics as well. And with respect to what are traders concerned about in their complaints, what are they actually questioning or arguing about with their brokers and with us, asking seeking a resolution. Some of the main topics that were covered in complaints last year were price checks. So in other words, a trader executed a trade or an order, and they believed that something was wrong with the price that they were quoted for that trade or that order at their brokerage. Other topics included fund withdrawals. You'll note that our complaints categories are split into essentially three categories: trading, non-trading, and financial. And so we had quite a lot of complaints in 2020 that fell into the financial category. Essentially, customers had issues with either depositing or withdrawing funds from their account. We saw quite a bit of that related to a lot of market volatility and a lot of trading activity that traders conducted in the spring of last year, particularly in March, April, and May, as well as in the fall, around the September, October, November months, when sort of a lot of traders returned to the markets after the summer sort of lull that we had. And there was a lot of market volatility that was impacted by COVID-19 issues and pandemic, as well as we had a lot of movement on the gold markets as a lot of investors were rushing to safety, as they say, and using gold as a safe haven storage of value. At the same time, we had the U.S. election happen in November, which perhaps didn't provide that much market volatility in a sense, but it definitely got traders engaged in the markets last year, and hence that led to us receiving complaints and having to resolve issues that traders had. Besides that, we had um, complaints that had to do with platform issues. Perhaps a customer had an issue with their platform and wasn't working properly, or perhaps there was some unscheduled maintenance happening on the trading platform that the customer wasn't aware about, and that caused issues for them on their trading account. We also had complaints that had to do with agreement breach, as we call it. Agreement breach really means that the trader or the customer is arguing or debating a particular clause in the customer agreement that they had with the broker, or vice versa. The broker may have acted within the clauses or within the terms of their agreement, but the customer is not happy what happened with what happened on their account. Now, if we take a look at the different complaints categories that I mentioned, 346 complaints last year were in the trading category, 740 complaints were in the financial category, and 254 complaints were in the non-trading category last year. If we take a look at some of the other metrics that we look at on an annual basis, one of the things we look at is sort of some demographics for traders that come to us and like to ask questions or file complaints. We had some interesting developments in 2020 as compared to 2019. We had quite a lot of complaints, or the majority actually of our complaints from a regional perspective were actually from Asia. We had 468 complaints from the Asian region, which actually includes countries like India. And I could say that a significant amount of complaints from Asia were specifically from that country. We saw a decrease actually of complaints from Russia and former Soviet countries last year as compared to 2019. I think particularly because the Russian Forex market has been significantly diminished by local regulations, and it is quite prohibitive for a trader to open an account at a Russian brokerage today and be able to enjoy the same trade settings and the same services that are provided by brokers in other countries. And so we saw a lower amount of complaints from that region, as well as a lower amount of complaints that were filed in the Russian language itself. We were interested to see kind of how we did in other regions, and we were pleasantly surprised that we had some growth in the Middle East with respect to complaints coming out of that region. We had 192 complaints, and then followed by Europe at 99, Africa at 89 complaints, and finally Latin America at 78 complaints. And in those regions, we saw some marginal increases in 2020 as compared to 2019. Again, because we are servicing a larger number of brokers these days, some of which are either domiciled in those regions or do business in those from those regions, or have local representative offices and have a sort of geographical reach into those regions and have client bases who are living in those regions. Now, from a language perspective, which is something that we also look at, regions is one thing, but how many complaints are filed with us in what languages? And again, because our website is available in 7 or 8 different languages, we're able to accept your complaint in Spanish and Arabic and Chinese, and a few other ones actually. And to make it easy for traders to be able to communicate with us freely, and not have any kind of language barrier. So with respect to languages, the majority of complaints that we received last year, so 54.4% of complaints in 2020 were filed in English, followed by 347 in Russian, and 130 in Asian languages. We basically bucketed together Chinese, Thai, Indonesian, and other some of those Southeast Asian languages together into one. And then Spanish and Portuguese complaints were at 55, and Arabic and or Turkish language complaints were at 79. So the difference being between 2019 and 2020, we went over the 50% threshold of complaints being filed in English, from 2019 to 2020. We did see a dip, like I said, in Russian language complaints that were filed in the Russian language, and we saw an increase in the amount of complaints that were filed in Asian languages, including Chinese, Thai, Indonesian, etc., and a small uptick in Arabic language or Turkish language complaints from last year. Um, Now, if we take a look at our monthly statistics at the end of last month, you'll recall that we did publish statistics for November and December of last year. We didn't necessarily do a video. I apologize. I had some family issues to take care of, which precluded me from recording a video for you guys. But if we take a step back and we take a look at November and December, we actually saw a good uptick in complaints that came in November and also in December last year to kind of close out the year. It gave us a bit of a boost, because if you recall, our statistics for September and October looked like they were a bit weaker than they normally are in that time of year. So I'm looking at December right now. We had 127 complaints filed in December, and interestingly enough, we had 148 complaints that were successfully resolved in December. That's a significant uptick from November. It's about an 83% increase from November to December in terms of complaints that were actually resolved within that month. Now, what that means is our operations department and our dispute resolution committee really took the time in December to look at the cases that were outstanding, that were filed perhaps even at the tail end of October, those that were filed in November but were not yet resolved. And essentially, our team did a really great job of satisfying trader needs and essentially trying to quickly investigate and resolve complaints that would have otherwise had to carry over into 2021. So we're quite happy about that. Now, it's obviously 2021. January is actually moving along very quickly and will end in just about a week. So you can expect us to publish a new monthly report for January 2021. Sometime probably in the second week of February and perhaps the third week of February. You can join me again here on YouTube as I'll be discussing our new metrics for the first month of 2021. And we do expect that trader activity will continue in the markets as we move along from the end of last year to the beginning of this year. Specifically in markets like equities and CFDs specifically. And so we'll be looking out for a continued sort of healthy or elevated amount of new complaints that we'll receive in the first couple of months of 2021. So with that, I wish everyone luck and health at this point in time. And I welcome you to study the full report that's linked in the bottom of this video in the video description, and hope to see you again on YouTube next month as we'll be discussing our next month's statistics. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining me and have a great day.